Welcome to Drink Naked. My name is Stewie Robinson from Naked Wines. On this podcast, I'll be talking with a legend, an absolute rock star from the world of wine, and hopefully getting the answers to what drives them to do exactly what they do. Along the way, you'll learn a lot about wine and the many, many exciting things about it, but especially you'll learn about how the winemaker, when free to express their creativity, can make something truly awe-inspiring and life-changing. Today on Drink Naked, all the way from Marlborough in New Zealand via Mt Gambier on the Limestone coast of South Australia and McLaren Vale, 35 to 40 minutes south of Adelaide in South Australia, we welcome 2/4 of the whole, that is Altschwager and Kenneally wines. So Gus Altschwager, Mark Kenneally, welcome finally to Naked HQ.
Thank you, Stu.
Cheers, Stu. Good to be here.
Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. I want to start with this quote, which came through from an email from Gus, I believe, just a couple of weeks ago, and I will quote it. Things are going really well here, Gus says, and we have some exciting news to share with you and the Naked team. To follow the phone message I left on Friday, I'm going 100% naked in 3 months' time. I'll be resigning from my day job tomorrow, which leaves 3 months to work out. After that, no more working for the man. I'll be focusing 100% on making great wine for Naked and the Angels. A dream has come true for us, so thank you. This is a huge milestone for me. It's what I've always wanted to do since I started making wine 20 years ago.
So 100% true. We
Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually both going 100% naked.
Yep.
And it is a dream come true. We've been sort of working our whole life to get to this point where we can make our own wine and really focus on making the best wine that we can.
Okay, let me just put this in perspective. You came on board, you were liberated by Naked Angel customers on the 20th of November 2014. So
Yep.
Right.
4.5 years ago.
Yep.
Because here we are in June 2019, just to put it in perspective. When you say you're going 100% naked, can you just tell our listeners what you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so look, we're basically we're resigning from our day jobs, so to speak. We'll be running vineyards in the background, all for Naked Wines, all for our 3 brands that we've got here today. Just be concentrating and focusing on making wines for you guys and running our vineyards and sort of living the dream.
Yeah, I suppose the one thing that as we've grown our Naked business, we've had to still support our families with other work as well. So we have been doing some wine work. Mark and I originally worked together at Oyster Bay. Probably 8 years ago,
Something like that, yeah.
And so we have had to work to make wine for other people.
That's just the brutal, harsh reality.
It is
financially, right?
It is,
yeah.
And we've finally worked our way into a position where we can 100% focus on just making the wines that we make for Naked.
Yeah.
And that's always the dream. Well, that was always the dream. It's just that transition of sort of how you get there. It's a bit of a process. You know, as you sort of, I suppose, build this and build a bit of a following. It takes a little bit of time, and then there's probably ultimately a bit of a leap of faith, which is where we are today.
Yeah, and you've taken that leap of faith, which is great.
Yeah.
The Angels will be ecstatic to hear it.
Yeah.
Because let's just put this again into a bit of stark relief. We launched in 2014 with Mark as the face of Tappy.
Yep. That's
And
right.
that was the one brand. The brand was called Tappy,
Yep.
organic from Marlborough in New Zealand,
Yep.
and you were the face. So why, even though you're the both here now, and clearly it is a collaborative effort,
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
why were you the face?
So when we started, Gus and I have been friends for a long time, and we worked together for delegates in Oyster Bay, and we used to, go on a lot of surfing trips together and dream about what we could do and what we could start, and I suppose we found Naked and approached you guys, and you were receptive to doing something. I was living in Marlborough at the time, we approached our day jobs. We were working for separate companies at the time, but we approached our day jobs about doing something else on the side for ourselves, and my company was receptive to it.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
Gus.
Oyster Bay, there was a a clause in my contract that said I couldn't publicly be involved with any other wine company.
Yeah,
and that was fine. But it, I was really disappointed that I couldn't, potentially go on this amazing journey. So we hatched a plan that Mark was to be the face, and I, was to we were collaborating 50-50, and we made it work. And when I left Oyster Bay in 2016, that was when I could actually come out publicly and be involved in Naked publicly, and that's hence the name change, bringing Altschwager into the mix. And it's a fantastic thing for me to, I'm so proud of the wines that we make to actually be involved in the public side of it. It's really fantastic. I think it's been a lot more energetic, I think, because we've always we were holding back in the first couple of years. So.
And that was just, I suppose that's just sort of part of the journey of, and everyone's a little bit different, but that's just sort of the path that we had to take if we wanted to do what we were doing together. Obviously as well with the girls back at home. So
yes,
Swan and Emma.
You've mentioned the girls back at home.
Yeah.
Who are these girls back home? I know them, but let's let the listeners into your respective girls back home.
Yes, yeah. So we're a collaboration with our wives. So my wife Swan, and Emma, and so when we first started, Swan made the tappy wines. So she's a winemaker in her own right, and
we made them at her family's winery.
Yep.
Yeah. So they have a small winery called George Michel in Marlborough, and we were lucky enough to start our brand there and make the wines there. And it's been fantastic because we've all had a different skill set. Mark's skill set is vineyards, growing great wine, and world-class viticultural knowledge. I come from a winemaking background, and also systems and processes and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And Swan is a purist winemaker, so we sort of fit together really well. And then as we've grown, we've brought Emma into the mix as well because life gets busy, and she's really good on all things computer and social media and that sort of thing. So
administration, office, essential stuff.
And she also helps in the vineyard back at home as well.
Yep.
She does a bit of that. And then I suppose in terms of when it comes to putting the wines together, all four of us really do have a hand in it. So we'll get together and do some blending. Gus has been in McLaren Vale this weekend, for example.
Yes, you said, yeah.
So we were looking at a new Pinot Gris for Carpenter Rocks label.
Yep.
And Em sits in on those tastings as well. And so it is really a collaborative effort.
Which is totally, it's a unique dynamic for even the Naked business, But for instance, what I wrote here a little while ago to Angels was, Altschwager and Kenneally wines prove that four heads can and are better than one, a true collaboration that taps into a vast wealth of winemaking experience in both New Zealand and Australia. And then just 2 weeks ago, I went out to our Angel base again with, this, what I thought was brilliant copy, but I don't know, 4 friends, 3 regions, 2 countries, and 1 courageous dream. And,
Exactly, and
it's true.
That's what we're using something like that on the back of the label, sort of here. 2 countries, 3 wine regions, 4 friends.
Oh,
maybe
that's where I got it.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. Our dream was to try and bring together our whole life into our business, and I moved to Marlborough in 2005 with the full intention that I wanted to make wine in a cool climate area, and one day make wine in Mt Gambier. And I went to Marlborough to learn how to make.
And where's Mt Gambier?
So Mt Gambier is in the bottom of South Australia, the very foot before you get to the Victorian border.
Yep.
Reasonably close to Coonawarra, but as you go towards the ocean, it gets quite a lot cooler. And it's that sort of southern tip of the Southern Ocean that just gets the wind and the harsh weather that sort of would usually hit Tasmania. It sort of clips us as it goes through.
And so it's part of the Limestone coast.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
So is that an ancient seabed as well?
100%.
Yeah.
It's limestone, and it's slowly uplifted over, 5 or more million years. It's been lifting up. It's actually one of the more geological active areas in Australia. You've got volcanoes and that are dormant, not extinct, apparently.
Wow.
So there's volcanoes, lots of limestone with where the vineyard is. You have these beautiful flint pebble rocks that are like they sound like glass when you bang them together. But the vineyard that we're getting the fruit from has quite a unique terroir because of the rocks, the limestone, the very fertile soil, and the environment being really windy. We're getting some very concentrated flavours off the land down there. And it's still a very, very small region. So we're quite privileged to be pioneering.
Absolutely, and that's your Carpenter Rocks.
That's right.
Label, which we'll get to in a second. I just want to take you again. I said we'll jump around. It's just because there's so many stories going here. But let's go back to Tappy 2014. That was the start of the journey that we've just talked about. What was the genesis of the drive for Tappy Marlborough organic? Why did you go, that's what we're going to start with, and we'll propel from there?
So I suppose that's where we were both living at the time. So it was probably only natural that we were going to be making wines from there to start with. With a view of this could kind of go anywhere. But
two Australians living in Marlborough.
Exactly. But the organic side of things as well, I suppose we were. Personally, from a viticultural perspective, I sort of truly believe in organic viticulture. I think that why wouldn't you do it that way?
Define what you mean by organic as opposed to, say, bio or other words that are floating around at the moment.
Sure. So there is lots of words floating around at the moment, and it can get confusing. But organic means you have to be certified, and essentially what it means is no synthetic fungicides, herbicides, or pesticides. So there's only a certain amount of products that you're allowed to use. So anything that is made synthetically can't be used in the vineyard or added in the wine.
So clearly there is a care and respect for what is underneath the ground as well as what's going on top of the ground, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think by taking a few of those tools away, what you're really doing is then focusing on soil health and vineyard health, and creating a sort of a healthy, and you could call it an ecosystem as well. It's probably moving from a bit of a monoculture crop into a sort of a more healthy ecosystem, and therefore theoretically those vines shouldn't need all those extra bits and pieces that conventional viticulture uses.
Which just makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you end up with an interesting product as well. You probably end up with something, people use the word terroir, but call it what you will, it's probably it allows something to be a bit more site specific if that site's alive and it's different from all the other ones around it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really Mark's taking me on that journey with him because I'd never made organic wine until we started together, and it's been a big learning curve for me. But I've seen some huge benefits.
Have you?
Yeah. What I'm seeing that the vineyards that are organic in the hard years, they're standing up to. So when I say hard year, I mean when the weather, particularly around vintage time, say it's raining or there's disease pressure or botrytis, those vineyards are more resilient. We're not seeing, we can hang them to get the optimum flavour ripeness, and we're not seeing them fall over with botrytis and or other mildews.
So they become naturally resistant.
Tougher. They're tougher.
They've
They've got a certain level of toughness. Because the vine has to struggle against the ecosystem, I suppose.
Which is really, when you think about their natural environment, it's
Absolutely.
returning it to the natural environment, right?
It is, for
and
sure.
that's
It's just stripping it back a little bit and just trying to encourage it to live more naturally how it should in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, organic is nothing new.
No.
It's actually the way everything used to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Before we had sprays and nitrogen fertilizers, you know, people in their veggie patch in the back garden, that instead of spraying things, they would have just pulled the weeds out and,
Absolutely.
you know, done it by hand.
And let the chickens run rampant.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And just on Tappy for a second, I mean, and jumping around now back to the future, Tappy Savvy, I think just in the last few weeks, picked up a trophy for best organic savvy at the New Zealand Organic Wine Show.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Champion Sauvignon Blanc for the 2019 Organic Wine Show in New Zealand.
Extraordinary.
It's the best organic Sauvignon Blanc in Marlborough and New Zealand. So,
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, we're wrapped. It's fantastic.
I mean, to think that you know, there's a lot of Sauvignon Blanc made in Marlborough, and to think that our little brand actually picked up the top gongs is incredible. You know, it's a dream come true for us. And you know, it's I suppose it's a good reward for the hard work we've been putting in, and you know, it goes right back to the vineyard. You know, it's we can't make great wine without great sourcing of fruit. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered just a little bit of Tappy, and I'm sure we'll get back to it.
Yep.
But let's jump forward to, I think it is 2016.
Yep.
Here, Mark Pollard and I, very comfortable with the fact that, you know, Altschwager and Kenneally, known as Team Tappy at the time, were ensconced and, you know, domiciled in Marlborough, happy. We were happy. And then you, Mark said, I'm going home. I'm taking Emma and the kids, and I'm going back to my home base in McLaren, Vale.
Yep.
What led to that?
So I suppose when we moved to New Zealand, we moved there with a view that at some point we would move home, just to be around family. It was just Emma and I over there initially, and it was great. And we thought we might be there for 2 years, and I think we were there for 7 in the end.
Right.
We had a son over there, and I suppose that pressure sort of changes things, and you know, when you start a business and you know, things like family and children change things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we decided that we'd make the move home.
Yep.
And I saw an opportunity back there, and I've always wanted, you know, I grew up sort of working in viticulture and wine in McLaren Vale initially, from a young age as a kid, but saw an opportunity to get back there, and thought, well, if we don't do it now, then
when would you do
when
it?
will we?
Yeah.
So that's when we spoke to you guys about, well, if we do that, can we expand and you know, change things, I suppose.
Absolutely.
And
I still remember. I remember the phone. Well, I still remember the chat we had up at the Newport Hotel, and it was a lovely, beautiful day. And you were there, and Mark Pollard and I were there, and you said, "We've got some McLaren fruit." And we went, right, okay, so right. So you want to go from being a pure play Marlborough player to warm-hearted, warm-blooded. Reds and whites from McLaren Vale, south of Adelaide. Okay, right. Okay.
Interesting.
I mean, you know,
that for a curveball.
I know, and it was, and you know, basically without doubt, the quality was right there in front of us. But we did have to do some swift manoeuvring in terms of where's this brand going?
Yeah,
you know, I don't know too many other Marlborough brands that go, I want to go and make in McLaren Vale, or you know, but clearly the pivotal core was the collaboration between the four of you.
Yep.
And we just went, absolutely. I mean, there's a term being called the flying winemakers, which have been around for donkey's years, which is basically you will go where the best fruit is and you will make the wine that comes from the best fruit from the best regions.
Yeah, 100%.
Here it is.
Yeah. And we're probably the smallest little multinational in the world.
I love it. That's going to stick.
But
and the idea is to maintain the smallness.
That's right. And look, when you know, behind closed doors, when we started speaking about this and saying, look, we want to go home, we want to start making some wines from home, we still want to stay together, we don't want to sort of split up the team.
Yeah.
We said, I think we can do it. You know, it is probably a little bit of a different business model, but you know, it's a modern world, modern technology. We're in contact all the time, easily. Yeah. And you know, Gus and Swan have been over regularly. I'll be in Marlborough in 2 weeks' time.
Yep.
And we just said, well, if we're going to do it, we really need to sort of stay genuine to that and
Yes.
and keep it a team effort. So these guys need to have as much influence on the Australian wines as we will on the Kiwi wines.
Absolutely, yeah.
And just try and be genuine with it. And you know, also Emma and I love Marlborough and we love the place. We had our first son there and we lived there for a long time. We've got a lot of mates. And we didn't want to lose contact with that either. So it's just a nice way of you know, and Gus obviously being Australian, he gets an opportunity to make wine back home.
Yeah. I mean, I think in one of the emails I sent to the Angel Base was, you know, that you guys are racking up a hell of a lot of frequent flyer points, and but that comes with the territory, which is, well, you've got 2 countries, 3 regions, and 4 people. So, I mean, so tell us a little bit just about the actual vineyard site that you've gone and put literally a tin shed on in McLaren Vale, and you've moved your family in there, and I've seen it, and it's sort of like, you know, my dream, open plan tin shed with all the mod cons of home, right smack in the middle of the most beautiful 25-year-old vineyard overlooking the Southern Ocean.
Yeah.
How'd you get it?
Well, got lucky. I mean, we you know, we put ourselves into the situation over there, and straight away the idea was that we'd buy a vineyard and set up, which I've always wanted to do in McLaren Vale. So we'd find something, and look, I think it was just right place, right time. So it popped up, and I knew of it. So Emma and I did a bit of homework on it, and thought it's probably something that's worth having a crack at. So we put an offer in and got it, and that's Cully Road. So.
And that is the Cully Road label, which is...
Cully Road label, that's that one there.
This one here?
Yeah.
Which is very, very minimal compared to the very tapestry-like tappy. But that's the great thing about your 3 brands. If you can't see them on the video, or you can always jump online and see them, whoever's listening, but they are very vastly different, as all 3 wines are. But let's just go back here for a second. Marlborough, cool climate, warm climate. What are the main differences in the varieties and the styles of wine that you can make between those two regions?
The McLaren Vale, you mean?
Oh, sorry, McLaren Vale. Yeah.
So, well, they're vastly different. So, I mean, it's a Mediterranean climate. So it is warm climate, you know, and it does get hot in summer. And we had a hot year this year, and you know, it is challenging in terms of viticulturally, it's challenging, but they're vastly different. So I suppose the 2 cool climate regions that we make wines out of, your you know, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, obviously, Chardonnay, and then they lend themselves perfectly to Pinot Noir as well. So that's your sort of your mid-weighted wines, and then you get to a warmer climate like McLaren Vale, and sort of where we there are up on the hill. It's, you know, perfect for Shiraz and for Grenache, which is having a real renaissance again, which is fantastic. So. We've got a lovely little bushwine Grenache block on the property, and that's probably a good transition between sort of Pinot heading towards Shiraz. So we kind of cover all the spectrums, really.
And bushvine, basically rambling vines that aren't trellised?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so they're sort of, they talk about them being trained like a goblet. So they sort of, as they get older, they put up 4 or 6 arms out of the ground, but they don't have a trellis, and that's the way that they've always been made always been grown in the Vale.
So, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's more modern vines out there now that are on trellises for sure. But, back, you know, when in the 1800s, when vines were being first planted there, that's how they were planted. And I think it was probably out of necessity as much, you know, and access to you know, plant whatever they could at the time. But it also has some of the bush vines in the Vale, they talk about, because the fruit's close to the ground and there's probably a radiant heat at night time, it helps to ripen that fruit. And it's a tough variety, Grenache. It bud bursts really early, and then it hangs on for a really long time. So it's this huge long growing season. So in some of the slightly cooler areas of the Vale, I think that probably does have an influence on ripening that fruit,
because it stays warmer for longer
at night time,
closer to
the
ground. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so by definition, no machine harvesting, right?
No, it's all hand pruned, all hand picked. Yep. So
Handmade.
They're backbreaking.
Yeah.
If the whole vineyard, if all the Shiraz and everything was like it, I wouldn't have a back anymore. But
So when you actually hand pruned, you actually, as opposed to a mechanical harvester which just threshes them off, it just stresses them off and breaks off from the little cap thing. You actually take off the entire bunch, yeah?
Absolutely. Yep. Just it's how you'd picture it. Yep. You're just cutting them off into a bucket.
Which means that they're actually getting into the winery a lot more fresher and cleaner.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's all just whole bunch, and that allows us to do some things differently in the winery as well.
I think with Grenache and Pinot Noir, even though Grenache is warm climate, Pinot Noir is cool climate, they're very similar wines to make, and having a bit of whole bunch character in there is quite important. So what I mean by whole bunch character is in the fermentation, rather than taking the stems out of all of the fruit, we'll leave a component that's actually that we leave the stem and put the whole bunch into the fermenter. And
what character does that bring?
It gives like a slight greenness, but it also brings a tannin that's really smooth, and it extends the length of the palate.
Yep.
And we find it aids with the longevity of the wine. The tannin, which is sort of like a mouth puckering feel.
Yeah.
That tannin makes the wine longer, and it lasts for longer in the mouth, but it also helps the wine age for longer. So
wow.
It's an amazing thing to be able to use whole bunches in Marlborough and also in McLaren Vale.
Wow.
So,
yeah. I mean, we've talked about both Tappy and Cully Road being your hometown and your home vineyard.
Yep.
Let's just go back a little bit to Carpenter Rocks.
Yep.
Mount Gambier. Not a lot of people know of Mount Gambier. We've talked briefly about the fact that it's part of the Limestone Coast, but it's where you were raised.
Exactly. Yeah, I was born and raised in Mount Gambier, and my family have farmed there for 150 years. We've been sheep and beef and cropping farmers there for a long, long time. And I grew up working with my father and grandfather on the farm, and have a deep running attachment to the land down there, because it's it's what I know and love, and I've always been attracted to agriculture, so growing anything, and I went to university to learn how to initially as a ag science, and then I actually met a good friend and moved into winemaking, and luckily someone in the region had started planting a vineyard around that time, and I got involved and sort of gave them a few pointers, and they happened to be our next door neighbours on the farm. So
handy.
Yeah. So we've just been had a long running relationship with the guys that have the vineyard next door, and always had a underlying desire to make wine from down there.
Yeah. And you said before it's within Cooee of the Great Southern Ocean.
It is.
It's surrounded by some regions that people might be familiar with, as you've mentioned, Coonawarra, Mount Benson, Robe.
Yep.
What else? That's it?
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, all of those limestone coast areas are in the sort of in the northern area of the limestone coast, and Mount Gambier is right in the southern tip of South Australia, just before you head over into Victoria. And when you get to there, the land changes a little bit. You get more sort of more fertile soils, because you're heading towards the volcanic areas.
Yep.
And it's probably naturally more healthy sort of country, because it's not so sandy. And you've got a lot of old areas that were sort of quite wet areas, and Europeans have drained some of those areas over time. So there's some silty sort of soils that, through sedimentation, have evolved to produce some of Australia's best farming soil.
So in the future, for instance, this is the only Mount Gambier wine that I think we've got. So, and you wouldn't be able to walk into a bottle shop and say, "Give me a Mount Gambier wine."
Right. I mean, there's a few down there, but they're they're very small, and we see great potential in the area as it just being.
Tell us about the potential of the area.
Well, it's just I mean, so jumping back slightly, when we moved back to South Australia, I suppose Gus threw us a curveball and said, "Well, now you're back there. We can probably start making some wines from down home. What do you think about that?" Probably like the conversation we had with you in Northport.
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
let's have a go." But Gus had spoken to me about the area and about that vineyard in the past when we were all living in New Zealand, and he said that it's fantastic, cool climate potential. So I was sort of eager to see it, and us being back in Australia, sort of, I suppose, made that a reality. But the potential of the region is fantastic. It's proper cool climate, it in a lot of ways mirrors Marlborough's climate.
Because I write about cool climate a lot, and I refer to the Angels a lot with cool climate. Can you just tell us, when we talk about this the overarching defining term, cool climate, what are the attributes and flavour profiles that tend to come from cool climate and high altitude areas?
Yep.
So the main thing is obviously it's colder. The average daytime and nighttime temperatures are colder than like McLaren Vale in summer. What's the normal daytime and nighttime temperatures there?
Oh, look, it varies, but you're probably up at about 18 to 20 degrees at nighttime, and above 30 in the daytime. So
yeah. So and then you go to a cool climate area like Marlborough or Mt Gambier, and you might be getting in summer still around that 25 to 30 in the day, but then it'll go down to 10 to 13 degrees at night time.
Yep.
So, and
sometimes about 3.
and that's in summer.
Yeah.
But the shoulders of the summer are a lot cooler, and it gets frosty.
Yep.
There's we have to have frost protection in both Mt Gambier and Marlborough.
And frost protection in terms of fans and flames and
things?
So
fans.
Yep.
Mainly fans in both areas, and before fans, helicopters.
Yes.
To essentially mix. There's in maritime areas, which are areas that are close to the ocean.
Yep.
There's always an inversion layer, so you have a warm layer above, maybe
10, 15 metres.
10 to 15 metres high, and then it's frosting down on the ground. And
frost being the natural enemy of the grape, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So green tissue just freezes with
Yeah.
grapevines. So it actually destroys the tissue, and then after it's been frosted, it'll turn brown and die. So
and there's your crop gone, your vintage gone.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. Yeah.
So
it can happen in the spring, and it'll destroy young shoots.
Yes.
They sort of shoot again, but your crop will be probably half or less than half of what it would have been, and it's nowhere near as good a quality either. Yeah. And
so
then it can also happen in the autumn when they're ripening, and what happens is the leaves get frosted, and then it doesn't have doesn't have a way of ripening that fruit properly.
Yeah.
So it's a harder environment for vines to be growing in, and there's particular varieties that can ripen a little bit earlier, like Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris.
Yep.
They are all earlier ripening varieties that you can grow in these cooler climate areas, and the other main benefit of cool areas at night time, the vine essentially shuts itself down, and the acidity in a warm climate area, the vine being warmer, it will metabolize the acid in the berries at night time.
Right. So it doesn't go completely to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whereas the cool climate areas, as soon as you get to that 13, 14 degrees, it stops that metabolism going, and as a consequence, when you get to harvest, you've got a higher acidity, and that with these earlier ripening varieties gives you a natural sugar acid balance that
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It absolutely is fascinating. I mean, it's like, for instance, they are a living, breathing organism, aren't they? And they are so sensitive to external factors. It's like, for instance, tell me if I'm wrong, but in the hot climate areas of Australia, for instance, over 32 degrees or whatever in the middle of summer, when it's ripening, they'll go, forget it. I'm shutting down.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, they do. And whereas whereas Shiraz is sort of tougher to that, and has the ability to do that as does Cabernet. These things you'll just lose all their acid, and you'll get them ripe, but the quality of the wine would just be nowhere near as good as if it's grown in a cool climate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, fascinating conversation. I mean, really, we're darting from Australia to New Zealand and back again in different climates, which is great. But I mean, this is now. I've also written, I think, in the last couple of weeks that to our Angel customer base that this is the full circle.
Yep.
These are the three regions.
Yep.
Cool climate, warm climate.
Yep.
What's it like being away from your best buddies? Of like you're both living across the ditch now. How often do you catch up? Because I know that the synergies are all the way through your combined relationship. You got married around the same time. Your wives are heavily involved in the business. You've got kids the same age.
Same age,
And you love doing the same thing. So what's it like, you being over here and you being over there?
Well, it's been when Mark and Emma first moved back, it was an adjustment period, I suppose, because we were learning how we can operate the business from afar. But I think we've nailed that now, and
we're sort of up and running with it now. And I suppose moving back to Australia, it took some time to get that side of it going. And we made wine, but it takes a year until they're ready to sell. And so this is our first vintage there. But in terms of how what it's like being away, it's just sort of a normal now. It's been a few years, so it's kind of normal. And we speak on the phone. I mean, 3-4 times a week probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm onto the phone to Mark every second, third day, and occasionally talking to Emma about the admin side of things. Swan and Emma talk a lot. About social media stuff. And I think Swan and I will be backwards and forwards on the winemaking side, like just on the weekend. Mark will let you know that we were blending some Pinot Gris for Carpenter Rock, so we were doing that on Mark's kitchen table. And then Swan will be back over later in the year to get the wine ready for bottling, and we just sort of juggle it, and it works. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through a little bit about the pivotal points of your branding? So the inspiration for Tappy.
Yes.
What does that word mean?
So Tappy, there's a mountain in Marlborough called, it's hard to say, Mount Tapue Anuku. And it's the highest peak in the region, and you can see it from everywhere. And it's a lovely big mountain. So I suppose we were trying to find something that was quintessentially Marlborough, and maybe something to aspire to, sort of thing. So that was the inspiration behind that. And then in terms of the actual label design itself, it's, as you said before, it's pretty bright and tapestry. And when you look at the mountain, when we took it to some guys to help us design the labels, they sort of picked up that when you look at the mountain, there's a lot of different faces to it, and a lot of different aspects, and it looks different all the time. So that was sort of the key behind that. And then we wanted something bright and bold, and
and I think
we certainly got that.
Certainly got that. It's great.
Through the research of we always wanted to call it Tappy because it's a pinnacle you can see anywhere in Marlborough. We just like the name. It's what the locals call it. And through researching it, there is a story about how the name references a princess that died, and it was something about the tears of a rainbow that are one of the faces of the mountain. And so that's when the designers got involved with the different colours. And
see, I love that. I mean, all you have to do is scratch the surface of a story, and there's just layer upon layer of complexity, isn't there?
Yeah. It's and we we really, I think you climbed the mountain with Emma.
Yep, Emma and I did.
Back in, 14 or?
14, 15, something like that. Yeah.
And I've seen it, and that's it's high.
It's a bit of a hike. Yeah,
It's the 10th highest mountain in New Zealand.
Is it really?
Yeah. So well, in the Southern Alps, I think.
Right.
So
and it's it's got its own geological significance to creating the valleys of the Warrow and the Awatere, which is where
the two main valleys of Marlborough.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was it was just a natural choice for us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Carpenter Rocks, there's got to be a story there.
Yeah. So
from Mt Gambier.
Yeah. So Carpenter Rocks is a really small beach town that we when
it's probably 10 k's from the vineyard or something.
When I was a kid, I grew up going and swimming there and fishing and later surfing.
Mm-hmm.
We're keen surfers, so we've always had an affinity with Carpenter Rocks because that's where we've gone when I grew up.
Yeah.
And what we were looking for from a brand from Marlborough is a name that when someone wants to find out about the area, they can jump online and actually
Mt Gambier.
Mount Gambier. Well,
right.
where is Carpenter Rocks?
Yeah.
And so it takes them to the place.
Straight to it.
Yep.
So this is 10 k's from the vineyard and the farm.
Didn't realise it was a town.
Yeah.
So it's probably only, I don't know, 50, 60 people live there.
It's a little crayfishing village, really. It's just
right.
Yeah.
And it is. It's a. So there's lots of. So the name actually comes from a translation from a French explorer that first charted that part of the Australian coast back in the 1800s. So it's Carpenter Rocks is La Charpentière is a French name he gave it, which means the carpenter's saw, because there's lots of offshore reefs and jagged rocks around that area. That
Gotcha.
He at the time, all the boats were wooden, and he thought it looked like the carpenter that is on the boat. He had these saws with pretty much an old hand saw. So
hence one of the very, very first designs I think I saw for this label was in fact going to incorporate a saw, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And then it's basically it's quite a it's part of the Shipwreck Coast. So if you go from there through into the Great Ocean Road in Victoria, there's been many shipwrecks. I think just in this little Carpenter Rocks area, there's been about 13 or 14 over 150 years. So we thought that was probably the most significant historical thing about the area, and we wanted to share it with people.
Absolutely. I just love the fact that it's so distinctly different from the one before, but actually, it's named after an actual
place.
Yeah. Which brings us to this.
Yeah.
Cully Road.
So that's home for Emma and I.
Yep.
So that's our vineyard, and in terms of what we were going to call it, we were sort of, I suppose, trying to find something, and really it's we're at the southern end of McLaren Vale, and it's sort of the end of the line, really. So, but the hills are, so we're back onto the hills, and we're in this dead end section of Cully Road. So, and our vineyard is up the whole side of it, up one side of Cully Road. So, it was a bit of a no-brainer for us. We just thought, well, look, this is home, and we liked the name, and it's sort of a winding dirt track, and that's sort of the significance of the road there on the label. So it's a little winding dirt track that's the end of the line, and that's home for us. So.
Can I just say, I mean, in terms of the minimalism of this label compared to the others, which is, and they all have, absolute bona fide reasons for existing.
Yes.
Our crew loves that label.
Great. Oh, that's great.
They just think it's great. It's just so quirky and minimal.
Yes. Yeah. And when we were designing it, it really is. It's that winding little dirt road. That,
I'm glad you told me that, because I didn't know why you were doing it, but now it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And it's also quite, I think another story was about the wind.
It is. It's a very windy site. So the designer said, well, that can sort of incorporate the track, and it can be the fact that it's a really windy, elevated site, which it is.
And I think I often think that it looks like the letters are being blown.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like leaves being blown off on on a windy day.
Yeah.
I just love the thought behind the depth that you've gone to actually make every single reason substantial in your branding is just extraordinary.
And I think that was really it's important for us as well, and that because we're in three quite distinctive and separate regions, how we tie that together. So, under the Altschwager Kenneally banner, I suppose, we wanted everything to be kind of genuine and true to the region that it's from, but then collaboratively fall under what we do.
Yes.
So rather than just having Altschwager Kenneally from Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough and McLaren Vale Shiraz, we thought, well, it's more genuine if we've got a McLaren Vale label, a Mt Gambier label, and a Marlborough label.
Yeah.
And they're all distinctly different and distinctly unique to their own region.
Which brings our conversation full circle. And as we said right at the start, we started with what I used to call Team Tappy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. 4 people from Team Tappy. We've now gone to Mt Gambier. We've gone to McLaren Vale. We've got Carpenter Rocks, and we've got Cully Road, and we've got Tappy now collectively under the umbrella of. And have I been pronouncing your name wrong? I've been saying Altschwager. Yeah. You're saying Altschwager.
Altschwager is how I'd pronounce it.
Me too. Apologies if I've been saying it wrong. Yeah. Altschwager as opposed to Altschwager. That's just the Aussie in me. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
So the actual branding overarchingly for the 3 regions will be sitting underneath the umbrella brand of Altschwager and Kenneally.
Yep.
Going forward, and the 3 separate brands will sit underneath that.
Yep.
Those 2 family names.
Exactly, right. and the key is on the cap. Has Altschwager Kenneally in it.
Yes.
It's to bring the range together so that it feels like it's part of a family. So
and it is.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, because it's like the last piece in the puzzle with the Cully Road joining the family in the last couple of weeks, and now all 3 labels are on our site live.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to do? You've achieved so much in literally the space of
incredible
4.5 years.
Yeah, it's amazing to think how quickly it's grown and changed. I mean, what did we do? A small run of Sauvignon Blanc in 2014, and then quickly added a Pinot Noir, and then all of a sudden we're making wines in a few different countries. But I don't think we really have any other.
I think our key thing from now is, now that we're going 100% naked, we'll be putting 100% of our energy into this.
Yeah.
And what we are really focused on is driving towards that organic philosophy.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of Mark and I's time over the next year will be about really shoring up supply and driving our vineyards to the next level.
Yeah.
Because obviously Mark's just bought Cully Road in the last couple of years, and there's a whole lot of work that needs to go in.
Yep. So that's in an organic conversion at this stage. So
phase at the moment. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work in transitioning that across, and then we hope in time that'll have a play in Mt Gambier as well.
Yes.
But, no, I think in terms of the future, it's really just about doing this as best we possibly can.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in Marlborough, we're planting 2 hectares of Pinot Gris this year.
Yep.
To supply our Pinot Gris label. So up until now in Marlborough, we have been buying some of our grapes from another organic vineyard owner, and with Swan and her father have some vineyards that we'd like to convert into organics.
Yes.
To supply part of the Tappy range. So it's going to be a great journey for me to learn how to get the best out of these vineyards, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting out there and on the tractor and doing a whole lot of practical stuff.
It's amazing, and without putting words in your mouth, but I will. I mean, this is all basically possible because of the support from the Naked Angel customers.
100%.
And you've gone from, as you said, working for the man.
Yeah.
Massive corporations.
Yeah.
Where you're not in contact with the the customer buying public at all to being directly in contact with your customers and the people who love your wines. I mean, it's a great journey.
Yeah. And look, we couldn't have done it without them. You know, it's a big step, and it's a big step change, and you know, it's been a fantastic process. We're lucky to be involved with you guys, and you know, have the support from the Angels.
And you know, it's just an amazing opportunity. I mean, this sort of concept of, it's like a true paddock to plate model. You know, the Angels are funding real people like us that are actually getting out there, getting their hands dirty, and we're making the best wines that you can get, because there's a whole lot of love, and you know, we're actually looking after things properly.
Yeah.
It's wines with soul. So
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, that work that you're putting into it at the very grassroots level, the vine roots level, will pay dividends now, but also in generations to come.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great story. Thank you very much for coming in. Let's crack a wine, shall we?
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
Which one out of these two, because we've tasted Tappy a lot,
Yep.
which one should we try here?
How about we do the Cully Road? Because
Sure. Okay.
Should we do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Crack it.
All right.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So what we're trying here is the brand new Cully Road
GSM.
GSM,
Yep.
which stands for...
Grenache, Shiraz, Mataro, or Mourvedre.
Yep.
So this is off of our vineyard. So this is the first vintage that we've made from this vineyard.
Yep.
As you said before, it's about 25 years old, the vineyard. So we sell fruit to Penfolds and a few other people. But
and in the industry sort of lingo, it's actually classified as A-grade fruit, which is as damn high as you can get.
Yeah. Yep. No, it is. It is. So so this is a Grenache dominant blend. Sort of
65.
Yeah, about 65% Grenache.
Grenache. Yep.
And then Shiraz next, and then just a little bit of Mataro.
About 5% Mataro.
Yep.
Which just kind of builds a bit of complexity.
It's beautifully fragrant.
Yeah.
Talk us through it. What are we getting?
So the Grenache being, that 70% of the blend, it's got this beautiful floral and almost like a blueberry sort of aroma, and it jumps out of the glass.
It does.
Yeah. I get quite a sort of a confected lift to it as well. I think, as you said, it's sort of it is really sort of fragrant and lifted, and Grenache can be made in sort of a heavier style or a lighter style, but we try and make it, like Gus said before, sort of Pinot-esque. Not in terms of they're the same variety, but in how we make it.
Yep.
And that gives us a sort of a more medium-bodied wine and a more pretty, feminine sort of wine.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We're very careful with the amount of Shiraz we'll put in. We'll just use enough just to build the weight of the wine, but we want to leave that Grenache quality in the aromatics. And that's really pretty lifted red fruits with a bit of mulberry and
it's just beautiful, isn't it?
And it just, thanks, Stu. Yeah, it's come together really well.
Yeah.
The Bushvine Grenache off Mark's block is really special fruit.
Secret ingredient?
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, so no, look, it's a great little block. It's tucked away, and it is a little bit unique for McLaren Vale. There's not all that much Grenache in that little sub-region where we are, and it's probably sort of a more elevated, and it's on a different soil type to where most of the traditional bush vines are grown to.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different probably.
It's probably a little bit cooler. Do you get more acidity?
Yep,
I think
perhaps
from that.
It's close to the ocean, so it could be. Yeah.
Yep. In terms of McLaren Vale, it's still warm in McLaren Vale, but the breezes that you get up on the hill there are a bit more than down closer to the flatter area in McLaren Vale.
Gotcha. And like we were saying before, in the middle of summer when the ripening period is, and BOMAs are going through the roof and sugar levels are going through the roof, vines do like to have a little bit of a cooling breeze, don't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it just gives them some respite. So and probably allows them to sort of get a bit more hang time, and they get to hang in there and get sort of phenologically ripe as well as sugar ripe. So that's sort of
phenologically.
Yeah. So physically ripe. So you get sort of ripe skins and ripe seeds as well as.
And so the seeds go brown, right?
They do. Yeah. And when you sort of chew them. They're nutty and almost like Anzac biscuity.
Yeah.
And they come away from the pulp easily. And it has a chance to build some flavour rather than just sugar.
So when you pick, question, when you pick, do you pick, being the viticulturalist, do you actually pick according to Beaumet or actual breaking it open and seeing the actual phenological component as well?
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, we do test for Beaumet, and that gives you a really good guide. So you can sort of say, oh look, this is, in the heat of vintage, you can say, oh look, this block's not this week. We'll come back in 2-3 days' time and have a look again. But no, absolutely, you're looking at the skins, you're looking at the pulp, you're looking at the seeds, and you're just tasting for flavour as well. So, we probably use Beaumet as a guide and then pick on flavour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about tasting that fruit.
Yes.
That everything that you're seeing in the aroma and on the palate here, we see as in the fruit when we pick it. It morphs into a different level when it goes through the winemaking process.
Yes.
But after quite a few years of experience, you get to learn to see.
You see what that can end up being.
Exactly. The potential.
That's right. I mean, that's your skills, right?
Yeah.
Experience brings. Guys, I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to have you here at Drink Naked and in Naked HQ. We've seen how far you've come, literally from one wine, one brand in literally just a handful of years, 5 years.
Yeah.
But as always, I always finish off with 5 questions in 5 seconds. Now, I want to say that it's never so far, and we've done a few of these now with other winemakers, but it's never been 5 seconds. So take as long as you want.
Okay.
But let's start with you, Gus.
Okay.
And I always start with, it's an unfair question, but what's your favourite wine?
Well, it'd have to be Pinot Noir. It's sort of something that when I moved to New Zealand, I'd never experienced great Pinot Noir, and now I've learnt to love it.
Yep.
And it's the sort of variety that the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. So
interesting.
It's different every year, and it reflects the place more than anything. So yeah, that would be my favourite type of wine.
Side question: do you think the region has the ability to make premium, world-class Pinot?
I do. I think both Mt Gambier and Marlborough will be world-leading Pinot Noir areas. I mean, Marlborough's Pinot Noir has been out in the public for a long time now, and starting to. I believe if you love Burgundy wines, you'll love Marlborough Pinot off the clay soils.
Okay.
So I think the Mt Gambier Pinot that we've just started to learning about and starting to make is of equal quality, but it's of a different aromatic.
Okay.
It's more floral, and it's got a beautiful darkness on the palate, and I see it as an equal in terms of quality, but it's reflecting its place on site,
which is just brilliant.
So,
and that is the whole magic of wine, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a wine equals its provenance of where it was grown.
Exactly.
Mark,
Yes?
you've had a bit of an advantage here. Not that it's the quiz. What's your favourite wine?
I'm going to say Chardonnay. So I probably would have said Pinot if Gus had. But no, look, Chardonnay is just sort of if Cabernet or Pinot Noir is the king of red wine, then Chardonnay is the queen and of white wines, and it's just a fantastic variety. It's really versatile. It's really interesting. It's hard to make well.
Yeah.
It's great fun to make.
Awesome. So you don't get an undue advantage.
Yep.
Mark, what's your favourite wine moment anywhere, anytime, up until now?
One moment. I remember when a good mate of mine took Emma and I out for dinner I'm pretty sure it was 2006, and he'd been to the restaurant earlier that day, and it was before I was moving from South Australia to Western Australia at the time, but he'd snuck in there and opened a bottle of 82 Grange earlier in the day. And so he just kind of plonked that on the table in the middle of dinner, and that was pretty amazing. That was one of the greatest ones I've ever drunk. Yeah.
That was a great year too, from memory. Let alone a great wine.
Yeah. So no, it was just it was outstanding. It was sort of one of the standout moments.
It's funny how you remember those moments, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. I can remember the restaurant, and it was just he just said, "Oh, we'll catch up before you go," and I think that was his birth year wine that he'd been given by his godfather or someone, and just sort of decided it was a good moment to plonk it on the table.
I agree with him.
Yeah. I didn't say no.
Gus, your favourite wine moment anywhere, anytime up until now?
So many. There's a lot. I was thinking back to when I did a vintage over in Bergerac, which is a French region inland from Bordeaux, and I was lucky to be working in a very small family-owned winery, and they would have, as the French do, have a very long lunch in the middle of vintage. And one lunch I specifically remember they played a bit of a trick on me, and they got one of the best wines from the region that was been aged for 10 years. It was a Merlot based wine, and they'd poured it into 3 different glasses and asked me which wine do you think was the best, and each glass was a different shape, and anyway I was adamant that this glass number 2 was the best, and then they told me actually it's all the same wine. It's just the different shapes of the glasses. They were all fantastic wines, but I was adamant that this was the best one. But
was it actually in the best glass for the variety?
I think so. I think that was why it looked the best. I think that was something that stuck in my mind as a real learning exercise. That great wine can be made better with the right glassware.
Absolutely. And in fact, a certain brand out there has made their entire reputation based on just that. Haven't they?
Yeah.
Gus. Favourite driving song?
Oh, geez, I'm probably harking back to my tractor driving days growing up on the farm, but I'm a bit partial to a bit of Leonard Skinner, Sweet Home Alabama.
Rock out. Mark, what's yours?
Oh, anything Stones.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, I honestly couldn't really pick a favourite. Yeah.
All of the Stones?
Yep, all of the Stones.
Yeah, awesome. Mark, what do you want to be doing in 5 years' time?
Making wine. Look, I think we're doing what we want to be doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
So just hopefully doing what we're doing with Naked Wines and just doing that as best as we possibly can. Yeah.
Nice dream.
Yeah. No, exactly the same. A 5-year plan for me is to really make the most out of what we've got going here and maintain and build on the quality that we're delivering. And, I think, move towards that organic style of wine is where we'd like to head. Really the key is, we're making our favourite varieties from our favourite regions. Now it's really, securing that and driving the quality.
Yep.
So that's the goal for us.
And I suppose there's always challenges, and every year is different.
Yep.
There's always a specific thing that happens in a certain vintage, but just really trying to do it the best possible way, I suppose, and give it our all and see what happens.
It's a great dream. And I'll ask this last question to both of you, and you can both answer. What's the best thing about making exclusive wines exclusively for Naked Angel customers? We've touched on it already, but give us a nice soundbite.
Look, I think that, like you said, we've sort of touched on it, but it's fantastic to be able to have the interaction that we have with the customer base, the Angel base, and there's no business model that I'm aware of that has that genuine link between us and them via you guys.
Yep.
And it's a bit special and it's fantastic. It's really great to get the feedback that they give us about, this one was fantastic. We served it at our wedding, or something like that. It's pretty special.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Memories.
It's a great motivation for us.
Yeah.
To hear that someone thought highly enough of our wine to serve it at their wedding. It's pretty amazing.
It's cool.
And but the opportunity that the Naked model's given us is to realise our dream, and we're making wine for the angels that we believe are the best wines that we can make. So
yeah, well, that's just fantastic.
Yeah. And we can't thank you and the angels enough.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board, and here's to some great wines in the future. So, guys, thank you very much for coming in, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Stu. Thanks
Cheers,
for having us.
Thanks for listening to Drink Naked. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If you like what you heard, leave a 5-star review. And if you think you know someone that might like it as much as you, please let them know that we exist. In the meantime, stay tuned for the next winemaker rockstar to come visiting at Naked HQ.